It's a thing, just so you
I
know.
don't know, I believe
It
you. I
is-
mean,
it
if
is a
you look
thing.
at all the different spelling all the time, I
Oh.
wouldn't know, like.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
I got a TY today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That one I know.
Yeah.
Because you can't spell out thank you.
No, right.
Too much effort.
Takes too long.
Too long.
Yep.
Too much effort.
So FYI, I did, we are streaming live on YouTube. So there may be members of the public out there watching as we go along, just FYI. Yeah. Right.
Mark?
Yeah.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
Tracy? Yes. And Tabitha? Here.
And we are going to start this evening with the Records Commission meeting. That was the roll call. Any public participation?
Not to my knowledge.
Nope. Motion to approve the disposal of records. I need a motion.
I'll second. Mark?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
Tracy? Yes. Tabitha? Yeah.
Any other business or any other records?
No other records, but I didn't know, Tabitha, if we'd ever done this since you started with the board. Don't, okay, so we are required to have a document, a retention plan for all of our documents. And so it's approved by the state. And so now when we are going to be disposing of things that we no longer need to keep, the records, it has to be approved by our Records Commission, and our Records Commission is the board. But the Records Commission has to meet at least once per year, according to state law. So we always have it as a separate listed meeting, but it takes 60 seconds or less.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the regular Brown County Public Library Board meetings. You start with the roll call.
Mark?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Barb?
Yeah.
Tracy?
Yes.
Tabitha?
Any public participation?
Can see.
Don't see any. Okay, I need approval of the minutes for the September 2023 special and regular board meetings. I'll move. I'll second.
Mark?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Tracy? Yes. Tabitha?
Lynn, correspondence?
Sure. So we've got Public Library Fund for October, coming in, our portion just under $79,500. So we are really well on track still for this, for the PLF for the entire year. And then just some updates from Ohio Library Council themselves. And the conference was held in Cincinnati this year. And Tanya went to a day and Heather went to, I think, 2 days, and I was there for the full 3. It was a really good conference, but it was also very well attended. And they have opened up registration for the Public Library Association Conference in Columbus. So the Public Library Association is one of the divisions of the American Library Association. And they have a national conference every other year. And this coming year, it happens to be in Columbus, which is a big deal, right? For Ohio to host, librarians from all across the country. And so they've also given Ohio librarians really big discounts on attending the conference. So I will just say I already went ahead and registered so that we've got at least one spot available for one of our staff members. And then I talked about this last time that the Ohio legislature is really looking at property taxes. And so there actually have been there's been at least one thing that's changed since the last time we talked, and that's House Bill 187. And that's where they're looking at property valuations and the process for valuing property. And the changes it passed in the House, but now it's going on to the Senate. So there's at least one of the chambers that, is looking at it, and it's trying to, I guess, slow down the impact of how quickly prices of property increased over the last couple of years, and reduce the impact on people. And then I just gave you a little bit of statistic that came out of one of the Ohio Library Council messages that they sent, that in the prior year, or at least for the first part of the prior year, only 16% of the challenges to items in public libraries, 16% of all the challenges were in public libraries, which meant 84% were probably in school libraries. But that's changed, and now 49% of all the book challenges are in public libraries. That's a huge increase. And we've seen it. And it's gotten ugly. So it was good to see some quantification of that phenomenon.
But it's still a 20% increase from the previous.
Yes.
year. It's not going.
Exactly.
We were hoping that we would see a dip,
Yes.
and we're not.
No, we're not.
Okay, is that it on correspondence?
That is it on the
Okay, thank you.
correspondence. You are welcome.
Miss Sarah, you're up on the financial report.
Okey dokey. Preparation summary report is the report I always start with. Comparing August to September. Salaries for the month of September, $67,500. That is slightly up from August, just $524. Employee fringe benefits, $16,504. That is slightly up as well, $278. So payroll, August, September, very close. Purchase and contracted services, $12,085.70. That was down $3,567. Library materials, information and supplies, $23,274. Supplies, $454.88. That is down $8,704. So salaries, benefits up slightly, purchase contracted services and library materials down. So general month to date compared to August, down $8,812.14. So total month to date expenditures out of all funds, $125,503. That is down $47,810 compared to August. Bank reconciliation report, receipts for the month of September, $101,640, payments, $128,228. I did some E-rate reimbursements, $2,687. Let's see. Outstanding payments. I have one outstanding payment left from September, and that is actually an employee Zane Joyce. His 9/29 payroll check still needs to be cashed, so of $83.62. Other than that, all payments in September have cleared the bank. Yay. Cash summary, cash fund, I can't call it cash flow summary. We're looking at September actuals. The PLF was $90,507.84. Property tax allocations, $8,309. Other receipts brought in $284. So my total revenue in the general fund was $99,102.30. We already talked about the salaries and benefits and all that. So total expenditures in the general fund, $119,820. So with all of our where we want it, we're at 930, 382. So we're in really good shape for the general fund closing in on the end of October. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cash summary by fund expenditures, I already mentioned for the month of September, $125,503. The September 2023 expenditure reconciliation report. For the payments, 39,404. The payrolls, the September 15th payroll was 36,954. September 29th payroll, 32,580. Board share OPERS, 9,734. Board share Medicare, 975.58. Board health, 5,385.10. I paid all the local taxes for third quarter, so that's why they're positives. They're usually negatives. Employee health, 1,206. So total expenditures, 125,503.83. Any questions about the payments? You'll notice the top one are those board edges, the negative adjustments. That's what I had mentioned, that I did some reimbursements. Anything stick out to you for payments? Everything was pretty straightforward in September. Fund summary report. Open POs currently 113,368.75. Most of that is in the general fund. We're hoping to start cutting that down a lot as we get closer to end of year. The last report you get 4 times a year, which is our quarterly report. So let me just spend a little bit of time and go through that with you guys. So public library fund this year so far, 755,316. That is up 9,594 compared to 2022. So up a little bit. The number, we would like it a little higher, but we'll take as long as it's going up and not down.
Yeah, and you know what, for my purposes, I just look at those 2020, 2021, and 2022, and I just kind of erase them. And I go back to 2019, you know, obviously you have to then think about inflation a little bit, but those 3 years were just weird years all around. So I just kind of,
Yeah, and those are
in my mind, blank it out.
Those are my 3 main years that I've been here.
Not that you're not invisible, you're important, but yeah, I just kind of go, yeah, I can't compare anything to those years.
Local taxes rollback homestead, for 2023, $679,038. That's up almost $40,000. So that's cool. Definitely going in the right direction. Services provided to other entities, that's up slightly, $950 compared to last year. And that's just things just changing a little bit. Other receipts, 9,157. That's up about $1,600 compared to last year. Expenditures, employee salaries, 592,786. That's up about $50,000 compared to last year. Benefits, 145,245. That's up about $10,000. So all of the revenue stuff seems to be, or expenditure stuff seems to be kind of. Labor, materials and services, 227,612. That is up almost 30,000. Other operating expenditures, that's up 20,669 compared to last year. Transfers out, we did one earlier in the year for 75,000. Compared to last year, we hadn't done any transfers at this time, so.
And that was the money that we put into the libraries accelerating learning grant fund. So because it's a reimbursing grant, so we had to have money in there first to spend. So eventually that will go back into the general fund.
Yep. So the general revenue up 51,848. The expenditures up 131,827. And without that transfer is just 56,827. So I think that number looks higher because of that transfer we did earlier in the year. Which doesn't normally happen until later.
Yeah.
Like fourth quarter-ish. So. Questions about all that money stuff?
Ending cash balance looks really good.
Yes. So. Questions?
Any questions? No, I'm good. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Next, we have to have a motion to accept. I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Barb, yes. Kathleen,
Yeah.
Tracy,
Yes.
Tabitha.
Next, we need a motion to accept the audit report 2021 to 2022, which is in the. what do we
Yellow,
call this?
pretty yellow. And I believe I saw an email from the auditor saying that now it's officially been released. So this was draft form, but it's now final, and it has been apparently, released. It's available to the public if people want to go and look at it. I don't know if where you want to start,
I
Sarah.
didn't see anything new versus
On
what we had talked about last
Right.
month. It was all exactly what we anticipated.
Right, but there's a lot of legalese in these reports that they have to state exactly by law, what are they supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? So I kind of marked a couple of places that might help. So in this one that shows, it says exit conference agenda at the top in that little header. I marked page 3, and that's has got a chart at the bottom of it right down there. So I was just looking at, these required communications and going, okay, way down at the bottom on the left-hand side, significant unusual transactions. None. You turn the page, matters requiring outside consultation. None. Other significant matters relevant to the finance, none. So, and, basically, there was nothing of note that we had to worry about or that you all were contacted about, that they found things that were significant items that we needed to address. So that's what I took away from this. I don't know, Sarah, if there's anything more
Nope,
specific.
that's
That's
All I
okay.
see in there's none.
Yes, exactly. If you read the one that's called management letter, that's just 2 pages stapled together. Again, lots of legal stuff, right? The very last paragraph of page 1, it looks like it could say, I mean, essentially, we don't use GAAP accounting standards, which is what they kind of look at. And so there's some places where you might say, oh, it looks like we're not in compliance. But it's not that we're not in compliance, it's that we don't comply with those standards. We have a different set of standards and a different process. And so there's if you're not looking at every little which ORC code of this and that and the other, it could look like it's bad, but it's just basically we are a government auditing standards report. And so I took away about in the middle of this last paragraph, the comments represent matters which they believe where they believe that we might approve or achieve some improvements. So this is all about, are you doing some things that could help you make sure there are no you're missing any I's, dotting I's and crossing T's. And so, but on page 2, under the first number 1, I'm looking at non-compliance findings. Okay. Very last paragraph. We found no written evidence that the policy, and this, I don't know, Sarah, if we talked about this last time or not in the last meeting.
We talked a lot about the audit.
So one of the things that apparently was very common in all kinds of governmental audits this time around, because it's changed from the last time they did audits, is that this public records, sunshine laws, you have to have everything out in the open. We had nothing in writing showing that the public records policy was turned over to Sarah when Vivian left. Okay, it's in our policy and she gets the policy and we have a process for handling public records requests, but we're supposed to have apparently written evidence that she got a copy of the policy. So we got from the auditor, we said, oh, is there some document that and she sent us a sample form so it's just another one of those signature pages. Yes, I received this document. So that was one of the non-compliance findings, is that we didn't have a piece of paper signed saying you got the
And it's
policy.
been 11 years since we had the full-blown audit. So a lot of things have changed.
Yeah, they're 11 years since a full-blown audit. So okay, no big deal. We start signing a piece of paper. The recommendation at the bottom of page 2 is about the way that we show the property tax levy money coming in. And rather than showing it as, oh, the auditor gave us, sent however many dollars into our checking account, they want us to show the whole amount collected by the county less the fees. So we have to show it as the total gross income and then show an expenditure of fees, even though we don't pay anybody out, which to me is kind of weird. Why are we showing in
Yeah.
more money than we actually have coming in? So you can't match a receipt to this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have to show it being paid out. So that's what that is under that recommendation.
That'll be a learning experience.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And I don't know, on page 3, Sarah, help me, is that the transfers in number 2 on page 3? In number 2, the library did not have procedures in place to accurately post authorized budgetary measures to the accounting system. I think that was
Yeah.
the transfers from general fund to
Yeah.
special funds, because at the beginning of the year, when you approve permanent appropriations, in those appropriations, it says, we will transfer $10,000 to the technology fund, or we will transfer $40,000 to the capital improvements fund. And so we've always used that as our authorization to make those transfers, but they want to see it in the minutes that you have officially approved that, those numbers. And then in the same month, she actually makes the transfer. So in addition to you approve the budget for permanence, they want to see you make a motion at any given monthly board meeting and say, okay, you transfer that money now. And we do it. So that was, it was, yeah, I mean, again, technical processes, I'm thinking, well, they gave us our approval to do that. And then we wait till the end of the year to make sure we have enough money. But that is apparently not an easy enough trail for them to follow. And so they want us to do it
There's
differently.
a lot of justifying their existence.
So we'll do what they want.
We will do what they want. Yes.
You can imagine all the audits we get.
Yeah.
And a lot of what? We're already doing that? You
Yeah.
want us to change from a small a to a capital A,
Yeah.
you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
When the auditor returned my boxes, she did say how easy our audit was though. So that was.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and bottom line is in that very last one, it says draft on it. In the back, it says, you know, in a couple of places, it says, we did not identify any deficiencies. We didn't, you know, there are disclosed no instances of non-compliance. So basically it's a clean audit with a couple of process recommendations. It is. So kudos to Sarah for getting us through COVID and keeping the book straight. And yeah.
Teaching myself along the way.
Yes.
Okay, who wants to? Motion.
I will.
I move. I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Tracy.
Yes.
Tabitha. Thanks.
Okay, on to the executive director's report, starting with the building report and statistics.
Yes.
So I have to save my question for Heather for next.
Well, you do, but Tanya is online. And so if you had any questions for Tanya,
All right.
sorry, Tanya, just threw you under the bus there. So if he can't harass Heather, I guess he's got to harass somebody.
Oh, these are all good questions for Heather.
Oh, yes, well, I'm sure. But Tanya, you also don't have to battle anyone to talk about wonderful things going on in your building.
I'll take one for the team tonight.
All right, thank you.
Numbers have been up, and I think we've been seeing that across all of the branches lately, in conversations with the managers. Story time numbers, we're seeing those up all across the board. So new families, but also returning families who are steadily attending. So that's really nice to see. Heading into, you know, the season's readings and that, and I know 3 of the buildings have their book sales coming up. We had hours in the spring. Our friends chose to do one full book sale 6 days in the spring. So we do not have one in the fall this year. But hopefully next year that will change and we'll have three days on each one. But things are going pretty smooth. There's, been a couple of little things here and there, but special things, they're in your narrative there.
Yes, yeah,
So-
we got that. We'll talk about those fun things.
Yeah. So, but just navigating that, but things are actually, they're going pretty good, going pretty smooth. So
Yeah, survived fair and now into the swing of it, the full swing of all the busy fall activities. But yeah, I would agree, Tanya, that the numbers are up throughout the entire library system. And a big part of that is, it's obvious in the youth programs, but, it's everything. It really is. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Tanya.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is. Yeah. Do you want me to continue with the statistics?
Yes.
All right.
Unless, and does anybody have any questions?
Questions
on the
for
bill?
Tanya?
Okay. No.
All right. Well, we'll move on, but if you come up with something, Tanya's going to be with us for a little while. So yeah. So as I was looking at the statistics for September, September can be a kind of a funny month because it's the start of school, and yet then there's that break for fair when, everything kind of slows down. But as I'm looking at year-to-date numbers and kind of comparing it with last year, basically everything is right on track to exceed, what we did in 2022. And, we are feeling it. I feel like that even though it may look different in some ways, the amount of use has increased and returned to pre-pandemic levels. I think we've kind of set that behind us. And while we do operate differently and in some ways a lot more efficiently, I would say, with new processes, it's definitely, we are definitely busy. A couple of things that I wanted to point out. Well, for example, physical circulation. So those are the physical, you can put them in your hand items versus the digital items. If you look at year to date, you can see that it already exceeds end of year last year. So the concept, the perspective that, nobody checks out books or anything anymore, that's not true. People are coming in and using, whether it's books or, video games or whatever, they're coming in and they're using those physical items as well as the digital items, because those are increasing in use as well. And then I dropped down to near the bottom where it looks at patron accounts. And, once a year, our consortium goes through the entire patron database and removes accounts that haven't been used in a while. We know that. But I wanted to point out that since that was done last month, or maybe it was even August, it was a far lower number that were pulled out of our patron database than it was the prior year. So I don't know if we finally are getting to the point where, people who have cards are really regularly using them, or, there's not so much transients, sometimes people are moving around if they're staying in one place, or if it's also the fact that we honor cards from all over, and if they're already in the database and the consortium through some other library system, we're not going to give them one of our cards as well. So could be all those things playing into it. But you can see, from just below that, the library visits, the door count, we're set to exceed the number of people who are coming into the building last year. So everything is up and moving. I did, in your packets, we give you quarterly some of the breakdowns of some of these services we use. And I was looking particularly at the hotspots and Chromebooks because those were a couple of the things that we really invested some money in during the pandemic when there was so much remote going on. And, I kind of wondered, are we going to see those taper off? Not the case with the hotspots. And, we still have not built up broadband well enough in our area for that to be impacted. But I wouldn't be surprised, within 5 years, we see some change in that. I mean, that would be great if people actually had access to affordable broadband without, us having to provide that service. Because, right now we are close to the same amount of number that circulated all of last year. So, and then with the Chromebooks, in the 2022, that first year that we had them, that one number 25 in the April, that was a testing month in a lot of ways. So I look at 2022 numbers and I think, you might want to lop maybe 10 or 15 off of that 82. And so this year already, we've circulated again as many as we did the prior year. So it's catching on that, those things are available and people are actually using them. So that's a really good thing to see. And those are the big things that jumped out at me. But if you have questions about any of the other, I'd be happy to explain.
What's I'm going back to the building. report.
Yes.
What's the who fight counter that's locking off every afternoon?
Okay. So there is a,
I mean, is it affecting the statistics? then?
yes. So it is the automated tracking system for use of Wi-Fi. And it's provided by the state. And
Okay.
there's something about our network or the computer that's running, or, Tanya's been really involved in trying to work out these bugs with our IT consultant. But essentially, their connection to this tracking system, same time every day, they get booted off. So if they can't get logged back in, then any connections to our Wi-Fi, our building Wi-Fi, are not being counted. So it's an ongoing problem, and we,
So is that why the wireless use looks so low compared to everyone else potentially? I mean,
yes, that is exactly what we should be looking at. And because I would suspect that Georgetown's Wi-Fi use is probably, in between Fayetteville's and Mount Orbs on any given month.
Is that something we report to the state when we do?
I don't know that
When we
we
do
have
that
reported
here?
it to the state, but I think we've been in contact with the organization who runs SUFI. I don't know if anybody at the state library has been contacted.
No,
but-
I meant just in terms of when you do that year-end report.
Oh, yes, they look at Wi-Fi numbers. Yes, wireless
So
numbers.
should we put a disclaimer on here like
Yeah.
we have for?
They're not gonna
being
care.
closed, or if they won't know?
They won't care. They don't look at notes. They just go, what are your numbers? Unfortunately, that's it. But it's something I can add a note into
I
the
don't know,
report that
but
says,
it's just,
it's one of those. We know it's bigger, and it's Tanya, it's more of a regular pain in Tanya's neck than it is mine, because I get reminded of it, when we do the reports, and, if there's something in between that pops up in we've got somebody else working on this, but Tanya's got to deal with it day in and day out. And those kinds of things are really annoying. It's small, right? But it's not small because it takes up time every day. Any other questions or comments or?
Anything?
Can I ask a question about the overdrive thing?
Sure.
So there's a thing on here. Overdrive listen and overdrive read.
And let me get to the right report. And overdrive listen and overdrive read.
Yeah, there's like tons and tons of downloads.
I just am wondering what those two products are.
So the listen would be the digital audiobooks. Now, are these, Tanya, maybe you can, see, I don't look at these formats all the time. I'm looking usually at the bottom line numbers. And so, is it because they're coming through Libby? Is it, has
Yeah.
somebody done a
You
different
know,
format?
one thing that I don't
Yeah.
understand, like, I couldn't get a hoopla
Mm-hmm.
on my Kindle at the library, but what's it called, Libby?
Libby, mm-hmm.
But I couldn't get it. It was our book club book. And I'm used to reading on my Kindle.
Mhm.
They couldn't download it. We couldn't for like 6 weeks or 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird, isn't it?
So-
You would think if you don't have the book, that you could download just the edition of it by Goodreads.
Mm-hmm.
You can get that anytime.
No, you have to.
No
wait-
matter
you
how
have to
many.
wait in the queue, like you're on.
You
the
don't have to
list.
wait for it.
That's the one thing, so usually like Hoopla, Libby, and then Overdrive, those three would be the ones like me, my kids and I, we're always looking for books, where can we get them the easiest?
Yeah.
And if any of them will give
Well,
them to you faster
yeah,
without
Yes.
It's just
waiting.
with the book club.
But
Yeah.
even if you're
I'm
waiting, like you
thinking-
said, it's a long wait sometimes for just a digital.
And so
Right.
sometimes I just go ahead and buy it.
Well, and there is a program, it's called simultaneous use. And so there are some titles that you can get licenses for that allow, doesn't matter, there is no queue, right? But you can't do everything that way. So Tanya, did I see that you were going to make some kind of a comment on this or no?
Yes, it just depends on the device compatibility. So it's the format that fits your device. That is the different categories there, whether you're using Kindle or if you're using an iPhone. It just depends on what format fits your device.
Yeah, so these are either digital
Really?
books
My
or
Kindle
for the
is
audio,
updated.
digital audio books or, yeah.
Correct.
Good questions. Good questions.
Lynn, on to announcements.
Yeah, yep, on to announcements. So, not a lot going on in buildings for, we're kind of in between some of the services, although the fall maintenance for our furnaces and such is, that's kind of up on the horizon now. But Georgetown did have a couple of unusual incidents. And in addition to the drug paraphernalia that was found in an outside trash can, a used hypodermic needle, which, we would be naive to think that we're not going to find those things around, right? But it was discovered by the cleaning crew. And while we do have, we don't have anything so formal as we've got special sharps containers, but basically the local authorities told us you can use any kind of a pop bottle or anything like that. If something is found, put it in the pop bottle, call them and they'll come and take care of
So
it.
it was found inside.
It was found in it was found in an outside trash can.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so the cleaning crew actually took care of, multiple people were contacted, but they took care of calling the police and the police took care of it. And I know Tanya was involved in making sure that the cleaning crew knew going forward where those things were. So if they needed to get an enclosed bottle, they, knew where to find it and how to dispose of it.
Is
So
that what you're supposed to do when you find I don't know.
that's what we were counseled to do by local fire and
Okay,
police
I didn't
is,
know.
yeah. I would even go so far as to say if somebody finds something, if one of our staff finds something and they feel unsafe in handling it, they certainly, if they can get hold of the law enforcement right away and have, our fire, whoever we have that's in our localities and have them come take care of it, that would reduce our
Yeah.
liability as well.
Oh,
So,
100%, yeah.
so but we do, that's not always an option. It may not even be frequently an option. And so we just have to exercise real caution in handling those and putting them in a sharp container, an empty bottle so that no one is harmed by that. But Port Georgetown also had within, I don't know, was within a space of a week or a week and a half, Tanya, that someone left a marijuana joint on by a public computer. Yeah, it was one of those, you kind of just go, all right, okay. Again, we'd be naive to think that it doesn't happen, but they've seen a couple of instances of that kind
That
of.
was Georgetown too, where someone called and asked about drug tests available. for-
Oh, yeah, that's right. Asking about the drug test. Tony, what's good going on?
Yes,
there?
that was Georgetown also.
And
Yeah.
also the things are changing, and that's not as big a deal as it
Used to be, yes. Yeah, exactly. So, but it was just one of those, it's not what you would expect someone to leave behind, I guess, in my opinion. You also had the community engagement activity report was in your packets that I handed to you. And I don't know if anybody had any questions. Tanya, if there was anything you wanted to say about any of the things. I know that your food council meeting got canceled last minute, so you didn't even get to go to that one this month, so.
Correct. And it was canceled again today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We just had several members who are involved in a lot of different things. And 2 months in a row, it's been canceled. Law library is going well. Grants are being administered and funds are up there due to some cost saving measures that the board has taken. So they are very pleased with their balances right now.
Good. And I see I don't know if I made a mistake, but I didn't catch it, obviously. So in that law library section that's toward the bottom, it says that they approved the 2023 contract. Obviously, they approved the 2024 contract that this board had already approved. So a little correction there. That's next year's contract because they do contract with the public library to provide day-to-day services. And as Tanya mentioned, if they're doing grants or whatever, it's Tanya, primarily who is making sure all of that happens. So kudos to Tanya for getting things in order and helping them to keep a smoothly running ship there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A couple of changes under the funding opportunities. Letter A there, E-rate, we talk about that as being a regular kind of process. There is one pool of funds, they call them Category 2 funds, that actually help support equipment and those kinds of things versus actually just subsidizing internet costs. And every 5 years, they reauthorize these pools of money and put new guidelines on how you can use the money and what hoops you have to jump through in order to get the money. I did it last time myself. There are multiple forms you have to file and very complicated spreadsheets with, almost down to like the serial number of different pieces of equipment you have to have. I mean, it's really, Tracy, you've seen. So I decided that it was based upon my experience last time, it was not worth the library's money for me to spend my time doing all of that hoop jumping for the equipment money. And I reached out to, Lori Gurman. Yeah. So she's sending me a proposal for her to do all that filing for us so that we can hopefully get tens of thousands of dollars of equipment that we need to, we'll need to upgrade the firewall and the Wi-Fi access points and that kind of thing. So hopefully she can, do that well for us with very minimal cost because if she estimates $2,000 to $3,000 for doing all this filing, I mean, all the forms and everything. Oh, it's well worth it. I mean,
It's a nightmare. It's such
it-
crazy hurdle jumping. tiny.
yes.
Something goes sideways in your life and that form isn't in.
And you're done.
You're out of luck.
You're out of luck.
It's just insane.
And we're talking about, I mean, I think the last time we did this, we received $55,000 in funding for equipment. So it's, $2,000 to $3,000 for a consultant to do it is a tiny portion of that. So yeah, so good. So yes, it was a good conversation and I see that happening pretty quickly. What else? So we have been told that the letter C, the Appalachian Community Grant Program, that the window for turning in an application for actually the project where we might build a community center, that's going to open in the first half of November. So I am getting ready to make contact with our planner that was assigned to us to say, okay, do we have your plan and your dollars and all of that so that we can, actually get this filed. I still am not entirely hopeful that we have a really good chance because it appears that some regional organizations are going to be the ones who say, oh, yes, you can be included in our big overreaching project, or no, you don't fit in anywhere.
And you can't do one on your own. You
No.
have to be under the umbrella.
We have to be under some, I think they call them lead entity. So, but again, I look at this whole process and I think we got an architectural firm and design firms working on a preliminary plan for us. So even if it's not something we're ready to go with now, we got a basis for doing some work and possibly getting some other funding and, later on. So it's a really good exercise. Staff in service coming up. That's number 7, November 3rd. And we're going to the Mount Orb Church of Christ. It's good central location, but it's got a much better facility for doing the kinds of things that we want to do, rather than trying to reorganize the library and do things in our own buildings. And then we are a co-host of the Chamber's member meeting in November as well. So we'll have an opportunity to promote ourselves to the business world. And I think that's about it. The other stuff, if you want a paper copy of the announcements, I have extra somewhere if you want one, and because it wasn't something I sent in the packets. I always wait till close to the meeting to actually put all those together because things change very rapidly. Let me put it that way. But I do have extra copies of whatever you may want.
Why did we opt out of the natural gas aggregation program?
So-
Were we not qualified for it, or?
Well, okay, so we were qualified, but right now the amounts that they are proposing are higher than we're paying for gas at Georgetown, and this is just gas. And the other thing is, as I'm saying, because I had conversation with several people in their company about this to say, okay, so, here I'm looking at Duke's bill and here are the charges and whatever else, so you're telling me this per cubic foot, and this is what I also see a lot of other surcharges on my Duke, they charge their
Right.
riders for, my husband tries to explain to me how this works and I just, my eyes glaze over and I do, yeah, whatever. And so as I'm asking the aggregate company about, okay, so you're telling me this per cubic foot, but what other charges are you going to add on to that? Even if you can guarantee me a per cubic foot price, because we know utility costs are volatile, right? We get that. How much more am I really going to be paying every month? And I heard from one person, oh, there's nothing more. That's it. And I call back again and get some, oh, well, we don't know what those will be. And so I feel very uncomfortable about that. And I would rather us stick with Duke, who also does the gas here. And if we want to go through the Chambers program and they have something for gas in addition to the electric, then we'll go through the Chambers program where we've got people who we know will give us good, accurate information.
That makes sense. then.
So,
That makes sense.
Jeremy is on that committee. And I'll ask him if he knows
anything,
anything more about that.
yeah.
That's a good question.
And, and I understand because it helps entities like the village, to really do planning and kind of takes a lot of that right up, there's a lot that's taken off their plate by having somebody else do
Mhm.
that. And I understand it, but I think that for our organization, it's not necessarily a wise move at this time.
Yeah, and I think organizations and businesses, if they have under 18 tons per year, then they qualify. But
Okay,
if they have more, then they don't.
they don't.
Mhm.
So we might have
Most of
gotten
the-
to that.
All the homes will qualify.
Okay, we might have gotten to that point then in the process where they said, oh, well, you don't qualify anyway. Okay, so,
I'll let you know. I'll find out.
cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Number 6, BCPL Foundation assets. We need to have a discussion.
Or do you want to talk about committee reports before?
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make, because the personnel committee met, so I didn't know if they wanted to give you a verbal.
We came up with some suggestions that will be presented to you next month for wage adjustments. We looked at the rate of inflation, we looked at a lot of factors, and I think that what we'll present next month is best suited for our situation.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Sorry for skipping.
You worked hard, let them talk, yeah.
That was last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're good.
Okay,
Okay, let me try again.
now,
Number 6.
yes, the foundation.
BCPL Foundation assets discussion.
Yes, so you may recall that within the last couple of months, I had mentioned that we had been contacted by a charitable trust organization about I'm not sure even the right words, a remainder trust that was to be dispersed. And the library's foundation was named as a potential recipient. Now, the foundation doesn't exist anymore. And so that was one of those places where I said, okay, so can we as the library, because we have the documentation that, of the relationship between the foundation and, so can we provide them with documentation that so they would then release the funds to the library directly. And so I provided them with documents and they gave it to their council. And I got a phone call 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, that said they cannot distribute it to the library directly because the trust itself, in the legal documentation of the trust, there was no provision for if an organization disbanded, that it could go to somebody else. Either you're on that initial list and your organization is still active and you get the money, or if it is no longer active, then you get taken out of the pool and the money goes to the
Let's
remaining.
just open that foundation back up.
Yeah, okay, well. Not as easily done as said, okay? Because it's you have to do, when you apply for a tax exemption status to the IRS and an assignment of which category you fall under. I mean, it's a lot of work and attorneys get like $1,000 to be doing the paperwork. The filing itself, I think, is something like $450 or $500.
So how much is the payout if we were getting it?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
so it could be $50,000, it could be 500.
I doubt it was 500, but bottom line is we were not eligible to get that money because of the way the individual's trust had been written, because there was no legal way to say, oh, this trust doesn't exist in this name anymore, but you can give the money to
Okay.
can't do it.
that's good.
Okay, so in order to avoid, short of, okay, what are we, because we'd also have to get new trustees for the foundation, we'd have to recharter it with the state,
Oh, my God.
okay,
Okay.
this is one of the reasons that we let it go to begin with, because we have enough trouble finding trustees for the library board, forget finding trustees for a foundation. Anyway, there are two places where that foundation still has asset accounts. Okay, they're with People's Bank. There's about $6,800 in a savings account that was always used as a quick cash flow, because the foundation did things like they reimbursed mileage when we did home deliveries to people. They did sometimes it was a staff appreciation kind of thing. So there was that pool of money. And then there's also a brokerage account through UBS Financial. And so I am named as one of the people on the local bank account. And so I can go ahead and close it at any time. And we can put the money, you would have to decide where that money would go. I would hate to see the money go into the general fund. I'd like to, not at the risk of setting up another special fund, I think, but that's a decision that the board would need to make about the money. The UBS account, I've got the login information, so I was going to go online and find out, do some research, what needs to be done to close this out. Do we actually keep that local bank account open and transfer the money first and then close? Just kind of researching what to do. Well, it turns out I can't get into the online account, and it says it's locked. And so I call and they say, the first person I talk with says, I need to send you to a supervisor. And I'm going, oh no, how? And then the second person said, well, you really need to talk to somebody in this department. And then the third person said, oh, well, you just need to file a form that the board passed, the foundation board passed a resolution naming you, because there's nobody named on that account, on that brokerage account to handle it. And I'm thinking, well, how is that? Because I've called and talked with people in the past. I mean, this is some years ago, and I've got, I set up the login information. And so I said, well, here's the problem. The foundation doesn't exist. And that's why we're trying to figure out how to, move this money. And so she had me fill out the form anyway and submit a copy of the IRS letter that says, we are no longer a tax exempt organization. And so I've actually missed some phone calls today from her as I've been doing some other meetings that I had to do. So I don't know. And I can't tell you exactly how much money is in there because I can't log in and find out anything. But last I knew, and this was several years ago, it was about $65,000. So, it's not huge, but that's a chunk of money. And so, between that, I'm thinking to myself, so you all need to consider between $60,000 and $70,000 worth of money that was the foundation's, and what kinds of things might we want to do to handle that money, set up okay, here's this money in this account, and here are the things that it can be used for. And then anytime we want to use it, maybe the board has to approve a use for it.
That would make sense, yeah.
I think that's special money, and we just need to handle it, appropriately and not just dump it into a special fund. Sorry, Sarah, for another special fund, So I'm still working on it, and I'm going to leave the local account as it is until I find out about this brokerage account and what has to be done to get that money out. So hopefully I can actually talk live with the representative tomorrow and get some answers about that.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
So sorry, long, but important.
Nope. Okay, number 7, censorship in public libraries, an article that Lynn had.
Yep.
with the purple highlight showing the 33% increase.
Yeah. And earlier in that, it mentioned that same, the number of challenges in public libraries has grown to about half of all challenges. It did talk about that as well. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, well, there were two things. One was that, most of the challenged books were by or about people of color or LGBTQ people. So, there's a trend or pattern there. But the challenges, instead of being, we want you to reconsider this, bomb threats, harassing, getting people fired, getting librarians fired, or items just disappearing from the shelves. If the library won't remove them, then individuals will. And of course, I will just say over my many years that has happened anyway. I mean, why do some things just not stay on shelves? Because sometimes people don't want anyone to know they're checking them out. And so they just take them, that's one of those things. But selection like that, there are people occasionally, not a lot, very small percentage, but that will just go and remove things that they don't believe anybody else should be looking at.
That's very, very compatible with their moral world.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sure.
but I wish we could just put up a sign that says, we're in America, you don't have to read it.
Yes.
I mean, instead of pushing your belief system on the community as a whole, just don't. read it.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, the operative in this whole article is, while book banning isn't a new issue, it has become increasingly volatile and polarizing.
Oh my, yes. Exactly.
It's like just a big
It's
Else.
big mess.
mushroom cloud.
Yep. Well, and the very last, we talked about how that the whole concept of this has changed, where it used to be an individual would come and have a conversation with, the manager or whomever on and I don't like this because, well, let's read it, and it's a conversation that, they may not be happy with the fact that we're not going to remove it, but it's not volatile, right? It didn't used to be. And now it's not your local people making those challenges lots of times. It's from outside. So that whole nature has changed. And I found it very interesting that the last paragraph in this article is the way it's going to begin to manifest may look different. So, they see this continuing to happen, but they see it's continuing to change in the nature of the way it plays out. And I thought, it's going to be interesting to see what the next manifestation is.
Something that I think, and again, this just me being in schools, me being a mom, I feel like, not that I agree with book bans at all, but I feel like just like regular evening television, they have really started pushing boundaries and putting things in front of people on TV that I don't agree with my kids seeing. I feel like the same thing. Sorry, face right now. We'll talk about that. I feel like the same thing is happening with authors and books, and they're marketing it to children. And I feel like that's where a lot of parents are having issues. Is it's not necessarily about the LGB, I don't know what the words, and I don't know that it's necessarily about that first. It's the content that they're kind of putting in now that is again stretched. I don't know how to say it, bigger. It's much more than what I feel like used to be put into books even that are being marketed to kids. And so I think again, you have these extreme cases where people want to keep their kids safe. And I like this part where it said kind of, books should have some kind of rating system. I know just in my own house with Kate always being such an advanced reader, I didn't know what to pull for him at the library. And I'd be trying to get online, like, is this book appropriate? I mean, he's a first grader reading on a
Whatever
fifth, sixth
level.
grade level.
Yeah.
Like, so and not that I'm saying I agree with book bans, I think that's accepted, but I do see sometimes just in my own life, like I said, as a teacher, trying to protect kids when you can't always find out what the actual content is in the book, because even just running book clubs at school, if I hadn't always read the books, I wasn't quite sure, like, is this
What's
okay
gonna, yeah, what's gonna
to
happen?
give to my
Mhm.
4 kids sitting here reading out loud with me and talking and discussing. So I think, again, how we just go to extreme, we just go really big right now, everybody's offended about everything. I feel like that's what makes it really hard, but I also feel like, again, not that they should be banned, but I do wish, I know putting that YA title on some things, helps, but I do know it's hard.
Mhm,
It is hard as a
mhm,
teacher, as a parent, trying to figure out, like, is this something my kid can read? As an adult, I can make that choice for myself.
Yes,
I can pick
absolutely.
it up and go, oh, I don't really care for this content, I'm gonna put it back. And I'll have to make a big deal about it. But my kids, I don't necessarily know how to protect them.
Mhm.
And like I said, you
Well,
can't, you don't
You know,
necessarily
sometimes
know.
I think there's nothing wrong with them reading it and then you having a discussion with them.
Sometimes,
Mhm.
yeah. But there's still things, again, where
Well-
I don't really want my kids exposed to yet at that age, that I feel like is sometimes being put into books now. And that's where, as a parent, I can kind of see, but again, yes, they're going to extreme, ban books,
Mhm.
that's not what needs to happen. I think there needs to be discussions maybe around things, and again, maybe these books go in this part of the library and these go in the, and there could be things where parents sign their approval that say, yes, my kid, like, we have to have a letter, signed to watch clips, nudie clips and things. Could there be something for schools, I'm talking
Mhm.
more so,
Right,
to
right.
say, my kid can read books off of this shelf or off of this
Yeah.
section, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do see sometimes a bit of that where I see that worry piece, but again, people go to the absolute extreme and don't know how to deal with anything
That's
like
the
that.
scary
So-
part.
What's interesting, Tabitha, is, I think TV shows, movies, and books mirror the social morals of the time.
Yes.
So I think back to the 70s, when you think of the TV shows, the movies, I mean, it was limited.
Mhm.
Because at that time, current day, everything's in the open, right?
Mhm.
Every TV show has a gay actor.
Everything's
because
magnified.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's, society is more acceptable of that. And the
Yes.
books are going to be the same way, where you're trying to raise a child
Mhm.
and you're dictating their exposure based upon the age. I mean, it's just a different world.
Yeah.
Right,
It
and
is.
I don't mind them reading about that lifestyle, do you know what I mean? But it's like, I guess it goes more into the, I don't know if it's unrecorded, but like the sexual kind of
Mhm.
stuff that I feel like it's being snuck in more so into the younger books is what I feel like.
And we're forcing kids to grow up quicker.
Yes,
And they're
yes,
exposed
yes.
quicker
Yes,
than ever before,
Yes.
which we have to control as parents.
Parents, right. And that's,
Challenge.
I think one of those places where your experience in the schools, I mean, that's kind of where I see the biggest distinction between, how you need to approach it in the schools and how we have to approach it in the public libraries. We are
Totally opposite.
we
It's
are,
totally opposite.
it is, we are open, it's not our job to do the job of the parents, right? And we have to so be careful about saying or doing anything that would, in any way usurp, your right and your responsibility. But by virtue of doing that, then it's all out there and your kids might pull something off the shelf that you haven't read yet. And that, really puts the onus on a parent to have to, address those things. And it's a constant, it's a public relations issue. It really is what it is. And, we just encourage conversation. And I'll share with you something that I didn't put in your packets. But Amber shared with me a conversation that she had had with a patron who called and asked about censorship in banned books. And apparently, because he'd seen a display somewhere else about banned books and was concerned that our library would be banning books. And so it's, instead of somebody challenging something, it's, well, we see all this stuff. Are you guys gonna go? And of course, it was Banned Books Week. And so I very like, that's when we draw attention to it. And Amber said that she had a great conversation with him, and explained that banned books was to draw attention to the many, many titles over the years that have been challenged. And he was grateful for both that explanation and the fact that we are doing everything in our power not to censor, so that people have the choice to read, consume whatever it is they want to read and consume. So, and of course,
I was a school librarian for a long time. It is interesting because you cannot be like the public library. You absolutely cannot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are things out there that would be great for your kid and not for your kid. And if you put it out there, your kid's gonna pick it up and you're gonna go.
yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's very different, and in the school library setting, it's hard to
I
know
can't.
where to draw the line. I mean, like, you can't not have anything controversial, but it can be controversial and handled in an appropriate way.
Right.
But you really gotta work to make sure that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it's hard,
Mhm.
and the pressure's worse
I
now.
feel like it's just, again, though, it goes too big.
Yeah,
Let's ban
yeah,
all of-
yeah.
Or about this topic.
Right. One extreme or the other.
Right.
You should talk to your school librarian about what they're, just for, out of curiosity, because you're doing this. If they have like a selection policy for your school, because they should, the district should have a selection
selection
policy.
Well, we used to, I know for sure, but we've changed so many people in our
Mm.
library.
Mhm.
You know what, if we have the I think RYA, or I forget what it's called YA there, but I think it was 7th and 8th grade, I think, to check those out.
Mhm.
And 5th and 6th couldn't. I can't remember, and I don't
Yeah.
know even if they've updated or
Changed it.
kept in place.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because Marvin has only been there, I think this is her second year, and so, things like that. But I don't know. I mean, I definitely, like I said, I see a point for people being able to come into the public library and finding books that they can relate to.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But again, I don't know, maybe it's even just a better system of labeling instead of being alphabetical or by number. I don't know.
Mm.
Like the bookstore.
Yes,
Mm.
where it's by
Yeah.
category.
Mhm.
I don't know. But I just know, like, again, as a parent, I struggle even
Yeah.
sometimes, like I said, to just bring in. I'm thankful Kate mostly still on this side. Right now, but it's just, and it's not that I don't mind him reading about topics. It's
Mhm.
just, is the content about the topic okay still?
Right,
Just
yeah.
following that more.
How's it-
because
There's a lot of
yeah.
gratuitous, lots of stuff, and
Another biggie for a day, our parents are more involved in the children's schooling than
Ever.
before.
Yes.
I mean, than ever.
Yes. Yes.
I go back to a simple time when you walk into the school library and just grab whatever you
Whatever.
want. Nobody's saying anything to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you take it home. You hide it under your.
Yep, that's right. Don't want anybody to know I'm taking this.
But great discussion, guys.
Yeah,
That
it
was
is.
excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We need a motion to enter executive session to consider the employment of public employees.
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Tracy.
Yes.
Tabitha.
So Tanya, is there anything that you want to say to the board, or is there anything that anyone wants to ask Tanya before we have her leave the meeting? No?
Thank you, Tanya.
Okay.